Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Kitimat RCMP just put out their latest weekly report. A Kitimat police officer gave some tips on how to stay safe on the road, and people are being warned of plane ticket scams.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Members of the Thornhill Volunteer Fire Department recently had to respond to a report of a fire that was located under the Thornhill Bridge near ABC Metal Recycling. The firefighters were able to control the fire and eventually put it out without any injuries taking place, and the bridge also avoided taking any kind of damage. Despite there being no damage, the bridge's condition is still being checked out by a crew employed by Highways maintenance contractor Emil Anderson. An investigation is also still taking place to try and figure out just what exactly ended up being the cause of this fire. In their latest weekly report, the Kitimat RCMP put out some information about some recent incidents. One such incident saw the police get word of someone using a debit card in a fraudulent manner, as the victim let the RCMP know that they had seen money withdrawn from their account without any authorization. That investigation is still ongoing, but one case that isn't saw the Kitimat police made aware of a single vehicle collision that occurred near Onion Lake. An officer that was eventually dispatched then found that the vehicle in question had gone off of the roadway and crashed into a ditch, although the occupant was luckily not harmed at all, despite some serious damage being done to the vehicle. But the driver did not get off completely scot-free, as they got a violation ticket for driving without due care and attention. Next up is a profile that is looking to help local residents stay safe whenever their travels happen to require the use of a vehicle.
The end of 2023 may not have seen much in the way of snow, but ever since the new year began, northwestern BC has seen its fair share of snow as well as freezing rain, which could potentially lead to accidents occurring on the road. But there is means to prevent such incidents from happening, as described by a member of the Kitimat RCMP.
We're really encouraging people, make sure you have the right winter tires, make sure you have at least the snowflake or studded tires if you can. Make sure you drive to road conditions. Highway 37 corridor between Terrace and Kitimat, there's a lot of elevation changes and there's a lot of just weather changes that come through. Kitimat's right on the ocean, of course, so it's a little bit warmer. Terrace is a little more inland with all the winds coming through the valley, so it can technically be a little bit cooler sometimes. So just make sure you leave lots of time. If you're going to the airport, if you're going into Terrace, give yourself lots of time to get between the two.
Sergeant Rob Gardner also went on to recommend that drivers adjust their driving based on the conditions, as what might work for one type of weather may not work for another. Well, the sergeant also put out the reminder that conditions can change pretty quickly in the north. And as far as preparation tools for drivers go, Drive BC's website has cameras all throughout the province that show off the conditions of BC's respective highways, so drivers can know what they are facing before they head out to their destination, or perhaps lead them to decide that for the sake of safety, driving may not be the best idea at a specific point in time. For CFTK TV News, I'm Cale Maslin.
BC Premier David Eby turned down the province's retiring chief coroner's recent pleas for non-prescription safe supply of drugs, calling it a fundamental issue of disagreement on how to curb BC's drug crisis. Lisa Lapointe said that there were 2,511 suspected illicit drug deaths in 2023, the highest annual number ever recorded. Lapointe also said asking doctors to prescribe a safer supply of drugs wouldn't address the crisis. Evie responded by saying he appreciates Lapointe for her important work, but doesn't believe that the distribution of incredibly toxic opioid drugs without the supervision of a BC medical professional is a way out of the crisis. Coming up next, BC is planning on adding beds to help treat those struggling with addiction. Welcome back. As BC grapples with an overdose crisis that's only getting worse, the NDP government has unveiled a plan to add more treatment beds. It comes amid a court fight over banning drug use in some areas. CTV's Rob Buffer reports.
When you're ready for help, when you have a moment of clarity, it's hard to get into places, there's wait lists.
Richard Thompson finally did get help at a recovery treatment center he says saved his life.
lucky to get in, and I know if I didn't get into Discovery House when I did, I'd be one of those numbers that we were just talking about, there's 2,500 people. I was overdosing once a day, twice a day, so.
The province announced today it was funding a total 180 treatment beds across BC, many of them already in operation, all of them desperately needed. None more so than the 20 treatment beds exclusively for women coming to this View Royal facility later this year. News called the best of his career by Julian Daly, who works for the not-for-profit that will run the centre.
When I first heard it, I cried. It brought tears to my eyes because I see every day the people who are living on the streets, who are in addictions.
Still, as BC battles the crisis that claimed more lives than ever last year, there's concern voiced by the coroner the province lacks a plan and hasn't kept the data needed to assess what's working.
I don't know if a bed makes a difference. And I don't know which beds make a difference, and there is no outcome data available.
The data is coming, promised the Premier, who also weighed in on why the province is appealing last month's court ruling. A ruling that temporarily put legislation restricting public drug use on hold.
Maintain British Columbians' support for the idea that the criminal law is not the right way to deal with addiction. We also need to make sure that we're reassuring British Columbians that they don't have to give up their parks, they don't have to give up their bus stops.
While harm reduction advocates, including the chief coroner, have pushed back on the government's plan to restrict public drug use, the opposition says the province should have acted sooner.
Well, of course they should appeal it. I don't know why it took them weeks to figure out what would have taken me 2 minutes.
With 200,000 drug users in BC and 2,500 deaths from overdoses last year, the main point of consensus, dramatic action is needed. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
Now to the tug-of-war between park officials and campers at Oppenheimer Park. Every morning, rangers and police make sure campers pack up their tents and belongings. But CTV's Isabella Zavarisi tells the story of one of the campers who describes the toll it's taking.
On a rainy Vancouver day, Mark Maynard tidies up the area around the tent he lives in, trying to maintain a sense of routine as park rangers and police officers linger in the distance.
It's sad how things have gone. I mean, I never asked to be here. I'm just trying to survive.
The 58-year-old has lived in the park since May, preferring it over shelters. To survive the cold, he's accumulated tarps and other items.
I got too much stuff, but this is the stuff that I need to survive.
On January 9th, park rangers and police removed people's tents and belongings here. The city says rangers are enforcing a bylaw. It requires campers to pack up their tents in the morning, allowing them to be put up again hours later.
When we break these tents up and down every day, the poles break.
Enforcement has now become a daily occurrence. Maynard, who's part of the Yellowknives Dene First Nation, says he's gone through 5 tents since May.
I mean, I'm so exhausted, so tired. I'm in there resting all the time.
Maynard wants the city to put a pause on the bylaw, especially during extreme weather. CTV News asked the mayor what his plans are. He didn't want to talk about it, instead deferring to the city manager.
What can those without housing who live in these encampments expect going forward?
We do everything we can to connect them to services, working with partners in healthcare, BC Housing, and so on. But there is no immediate solution to that problem.
We know that encampments are here to stay, Vancouver, BC, and across Canada. And as such, they're part of the housing continuum. So we cannot forcefully displace people and hide homelessness as a solution to homelessness.
Maynard is on a wait list for housing, something he's hopeful for.
I need a home. I can't get restarted. I'm in limbo.
Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Vancouver.
The manager of the Winters Hotel admits there wasn't enough training or adequate staff to ensure the safety of tenants during an emergency. She also acknowledged that the sprinkler system had been shut off, but was scheduled to be serviced the very day of the deadly fire in 2022. CTV's St. John Alexander now with the latest on the coroner's inquest.
Clearly shaken by the fire in April 2022 and the deaths of Marianne Garlow and Dennis Gay, the manager of the Winters Hotel, Gina Vandenberg, testified that she knew the couple well. Dennis would come to her office every month to pay the rent, then sit and chat for an hour. "So it's taken quite a toll on me," she said, wiping away tears. and I felt quite close to the two people that passed away. It's been quite difficult. It's a big loss. A witness on the stand at the coroner's inquest for more than 5 hours, far longer than expected. Vandenberg admitted staff weren't properly prepared for emergencies. There had been no fire drills, and no solid plans were in place to ensure people with disabilities got out safely. Dennis Gay had severe hearing loss. More training. We need more training, especially fire safety training. Firefighters acknowledged that following a smaller fire a few days earlier, the sprinkler system had been turned off. The company hired to turn it back on, Vandenberg testified, was only open during business hours Monday to Friday, and they were scheduled to come the very afternoon of the deadly fire. Were you aware that the sprinkler system was off? Yes. Were you also aware that the alarm system was off? Yes. The day of the fire, Vandenberg was also under the impression that everyone had been accounted for. She said names were being checked off a list by people who didn't necessarily know the tenants. Free gift cards were being handed out, and it's possible some people wanted more, came back a second time, pretending to be someone else. And so another name may have been crossed off the list. St. John Alexander, CTV News, Burnaby.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast is expecting to deal with a few showers plus a low of close to 8 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area is currently expected to see some rain and a low of around 4 degrees, and the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is likely to get a chance of flurries or possibly rain showers, and its low down at -2 degrees. On the North Coast, their next week or so will consist of mostly just rain, and then maybe some flurries. We'll see highs between 11 and 2 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them is likely to see lots of rain also, but with more chances of flurries, and their high shifting between 7 and 0 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, their upcoming week will also be made up of flurries and rain warnings, while the high bounces from 9 to -2 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, fog patches, water pooling, and some maintenance, plus the Usk ferry is out of service and the cable car is in effect. Highway 35 and 118 have some slippery sections and compact snow. Highway 37 has some slippery sections too, while also having compact snow as well as various bits of maintenance, black ice, and a vehicle incident. 37A has compact snow and maintenance too, some more slippery sections on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections of its own. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the View of the Province's highway cams. Still to come, an Ontario man is facing upgraded charges for allegedly selling suicide kits. Welcome back to Ontario now, where a man accused of selling what have been referred to as suicide kits on the internet will plead not guilty to charges of first-degree murder. The man in question, Kenneth Law, saw the charges laid against him upgraded recently. CTV's Mike Walker has more.
Kenneth Law is accused of sending more than 1,200 packages of deadly sodium nitrite to over 40 countries, 160 in Canada, that police in Ontario have linked to 14 deaths. Now, charges against the Mississauga man have been upgraded to 14 counts of first-degree murder. Law's lawyer confirming to CTV News his client will be pleading not guilty to the upgraded charges. First-degree murder implies that authorities believe there was planning and deliberation.
That would require evidence that the police are certain would give them grounds that Kenneth Law prepared these packages for the specific purpose of killing an individual. And then he would have to have knowledge based upon his communications with the people who received it, who are the victims of these offenses, we're going to take it.
Sodium nitrite is a preservative which is potentially deadly in large doses. Law, who once worked as a chef at the Royal York Hotel, initially faced charges of aiding and abetting suicide. In December, those were upgraded to 14 counts of second-degree murder. Legal experts say the evidence for the upgraded first-degree murder charges must be compelling.
It's never been charged before. Not only never in Canada, never anywhere. So this is very much a test case. Is this an unlawful act, first of all, because counseling suicide is an unlawful act? Is this a homicide?
And suggests there could be some challenges for the prosecution.
Information from his computers and communications with the people who receive these packages and who are the victims. There would have to be compelling evidence that he's constructed these packages specifically to kill, that in fact he had knowledge that the individuals he was sending it to were going to take it so they would die from these substances.
They will have to show that this is not a one-off, that the planning and the deliberation is by virtue of the planning and the deliberation on so many other counts or instances.
Law remains in custody. He has said he's not responsible for what people do with his product.
There are a few different ways that someone could book themselves a flight. You can buy tickets through a travel agency, a tour group, or do it manually through an online website. But a warning, be careful if you're told you could get deep discounts using a ticket broker who claims that they could save you some money. CTV's Pat Foran now explains it further.
I'm still upset because the guy is not responding to anybody over here.
Baldeep Man of Oakville says last July his family planned a 3-week vacation to Dubai in India. While they were searching for airline tickets, Man's son said he heard about someone acting as a ticket broker who could save the money.
I said, okay, if he can give us a good deal, then we can get from him, right? We save quite a bit of money when we look at the price.
Man bought 4 airline tickets for himself, his wife, and 2 sons for just over $9,000. But when their holiday was done, their return tickets were never sent to them, and the ticket broker had gone silent.
He's not answering phone, he's not answering messages, he's not answering email. So you have to buy your own ticket on the spot, day before.
Man had to buy 4 more tickets to get back to Toronto at a cost of more than $14,000. He was trying to save money, but ended up paying almost $24,000 for the flights.
It's a complex world out there, and unfortunately there are people always trying to scam or pull the wool over someone's eyes.
The Travel Industry Council of Ontario, TICO, is the province's travel regulator, overseeing travel agencies, tour groups, and websites. If you book a trip with a TICO-registered company, you can be compensated if there's a problem.
Dealing with a TICO-registered travel agency, they're going to receive the consumer protections that are rightfully owed to them.
Mann says the same ticket broker he used also allegedly scammed a large group flying to a destination wedding.
And they booked 100 tickets from GTA to Vancouver. And they did not get tickets as well. 100 of them. So imagine what happened to those guys.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Dozens of nursing students in Saskatchewan are under investigation for allegedly cheating during exams. But some of them are pointing the finger at a defect in online monitoring software. Here's CTV's Allison Bamford.
A stressful start to the semester had Tyven Yee worried about his future in nursing. The second-year student nearly missed out on a clinical placement after he says he was wrongly accused of cheating.
Well, I felt powerless.
About 50 nursing students received this email at the start of the month, informing them their final exams were under review and they'd be pulled from any placements that needed a passing grade from the fall semester class.
I'd planned out my schedule, and all of a sudden all that went out the door.
These students were flagged for suspicious behavior during their online exams through proctoring software, an anti-cheating system. The dean admits technology isn't perfect, but made the choice to hold back students while they investigated.
It was really about finding a balance between patient safety and our students' ability to move forward.
The software is used across Canadian universities to combat online cheating, but some experts are critical of the programs that they say create unnecessary stress.
There are other paths available that don't involve surveilling students.
Some of the nursing students, including Yi, were cleared, but most cases found grounds for academic misconduct. It's part of a larger trend Canadian universities are seeing, brought on by the pandemic and a rise in artificial intelligence. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets pre-closure. The Canadian dollar is up 21/10 of a cent, the price of gold is down 30 cents, oil is down 25 cents, natural gas is down 6 cents, aluminum is up $9. In Toronto, the TSX is up 21.02 points, the Venture Index is down 0.01, in New York, the Dow Jones is up 4.65, and the Nasdaq is down 64.61. Still ahead is a look at a hockey game that will last a very long time. Welcome back. And the world's longest hockey game is currently underway in Edmonton. 45 kids and teenagers have hit the ice for a span of 3 days in order to raise money for cancer research. CTV's Nav Sanka reports.
Good luck and have some fun out there. You're doing it for a great cause.
Oilers greats Craig McTavish and Kevin Lowe give players a pep talk before they hit the ice. These young hockey players aren't playing any ordinary game. They'll be playing for 3 days. It's called the world's longest hockey game, and it started more than 20 years ago. Organizer Brent Sake played in the first game in memory of his father, who died of cancer in 1994. Sake's wife also died of cancer in 2003.
And it just seemed to be this thing that was important for our family to try and maintain and keep up with.
Over the next 2 decades, Sake hosted 7 hockey games and 2 world's longest baseball games. His efforts raised more than $7 million for cancer research. This year will be the second time it will be kids playing and not adults.
Kids drive the kids. It's like anything in life. They'll want to be here. They'll be tired, but it's such a fun environment. It's incredible.
The players are all aged between 10 and 16. Some of them are playing for their family members, like Corbin Blatz, who lost his grandfather to cancer.
I really love my grandpa and we had a really good connection together.
Others are playing for the cause. The money raised this year will go towards pediatric cancer research at the U of A.
It helps for research for people such as Ben Stelter loving the sport of hockey.
Kids playing for funding, research for kids' cancer. It's just such brings us such hope.
The kids will be playing until Sunday, day and night, non-stop in 4-hour shift rotations. It will leave them feeling exhausted, but also rewarded.
Yeah, I was sleeping for at least maybe 14 hours after it, so.
Nav Sanga, CTV News.
Home sales in BC are forecast to increase in 2024 by 7.8% in what the BC Real Estate Association said will be a delicate market balance. The association's Brian Ogmundson said headwinds slowed 2023 sales with elevated mortgage rates, but the recent decline in fixed mortgage rates and potential Bank of Canada rate cuts makes this year more optimistic. Ogmundson, the chief economist at the association, next said there will be a balance between rising sales and normalizing inventory, which should lead to prices being relatively quiet. The association said it believes lower inflation and softening economic growth will allow the Bank of Canada to lower its policy rates, spurring more home sales. That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We will see you next time.